Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode 3 of the Lore Lord Show.
Welcome
Today-
back to Lore
Oh, no.
Lords. It's me again. You can't fire me. I'm on contract. Sorry, Atlas.
I thought I got rid of you finally.
Yeah, no, he's sleeping like next to me every night now, and it's really not helping.
Jesus. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Look, I don't have anywhere to stay. And I took this to the law anyway. Last time on Lore Lords, we talked about one of
This to the law.
Last time, we talked about the origin of one of the most beloved franchises of all time and company, Square Enix. Thank you, Atlas, for that wonderful episode of Lore Lords. And this week, we're talking about yet another beloved franchise. But this time, we're going to the Kingdom of Hyrule to collect the 3 Triforce pieces. That's right. We're talking about the Zelda timeline. Take it away, gentlemen.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll just, I don't know, take him out back and shoot him in the head or something.
I mean, maybe. That might help out for future, I'm worried about the legal repercussions of this.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, well, let's see, if I murder him, I can get away with it.
Yeah, and it's legal because he's not a person.
Exactly, he's fake. But anyway, that's right, though. We are talking about The Legend of Zelda. And we are talking about specifically the timeline because what a wacky, waving, inflatable arm flailing 2 men of a timeline it is. Because that's right, it gets forked and it gets a little crazy. But I'm going to try to help make sense of it for you guys. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube and stuff that can help you through the timeline, but this is a patless, baby. This is us taking you through the timeline.
That's right. This is for you to explain it in your way that makes sense.
And also, I'm going to put my own twist on it.
Yeah, exactly. The patless way.
Exactly. And there's going to be so many fun little facts that both Atlas and I, remember from games and stuff that we can definitely bring up, and that'll it'll be a good time, and we can it'll all relate in. It'll all sound Gucci, baby. That's right. Let's fucking go. All right. Well, I'm going to open it. I actually have the physical book in front of me.
The Hyrule Historia?
Yeah, the Hyrule Historia. So I'm going to actually open that up for me. And if you want to hear the pages, here's some page ASMR.
I don't think I heard that. I don't think it went through.
It's not very long.
But it will in the audio recording.
Oh, maybe. Here we go. That was good, right? You hear that one?
No, still didn't go through.
Okay, never mind. Well, my mic
Damn it,
probably.
Discord.
God damn it, Discord. The history of Hyrule. But, so, the Hyrule Historia was actually dropped. So the timeline was released officially with the release of the game Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Now, before that, the timeline was always speculative. Everybody always guessed where things were, and people actually got pretty fucking close. On YouTube, old YouTube in the old 2000s, not the 2010s era, old YouTube. I used to watch theory videos all the time of what it could potentially be, and people had some really, good guesses, honestly, because a lot of them were pretty accurate in saying that Ocarina of Time, and we'll get to this, is one of the most. It is the one, if not, Ocarina is, if not, one of the most pinnacle Zelda games in the entire franchise. Because of Ocarina of Time, a lot of different things happen, which is cool, and we'll get to that. But however, one of the reasons why the Hyrule Historia, old YouTube, one of the reasons why Hyrule Historia was dropped with Skyward Sword in particular was because of Skyward Sword is the earliest game in the franchise, is the earliest game in the timeline. On the ground of the plains of what would be later on Hyrule, which is just kind of just a desert wasteland of different miscellaneous things, is old ancient peoples that lived thousands and thousands of years ago that are long since extinct, or old civilizations that are just long forgotten about. And before that was just the creation. So what the people believe in. And if you want to bring up the timeline, you can probably zoom in to the very top and then just kind of go down with me as we go, and I can say which game we get to, and then
Yeah, I just downloaded it, and it's max resolution, so we could see it. But Where did it go?
No. Okay.
In my...
That's okay.
Oh, where is it?
But I can describe what happens even before this, technically. The creation.
I found it.
The creation of land and sky. So even before these ancient civilizations were buried and discarded even by Skyward Sword, here it is. Yeah. That's the page I'm looking at, too. At the very, very top. Yep, the creation of land and sky. Perfect. It's like, see, as you can see on the left on the line, you can see the like the eras kind of thing, and then you can see like where each thing took place. So Skyward Sword actually takes place, if I'm not mistaken, a few hundred years after the Skyloft people have already been established. So people have been living in the sky for hundreds, if maybe not even thousands of years, and they're considered, you know, they're what would be later on the Hylians and stuff, and they're considered to be.
Oh, I just made that connection because high land, it's in the sky. It's high. It's high up. I understand now. And
they worship in Skyward Sword. They worship the goddess of Hylia. As you can see, it's the era of goddess of Hylia. So like, and they're kind of like, you can think of Hylians as basically like the most. Not maybe the most sophisticated, but some of the more intelligent, ambitious peoples of the world. But they're of light, so they're generally good speaking. There can be bad Hylians, you know, that happens. There's bad people, of course, but generally speaking, Hylians are all typically optimists by nature. And so, anyway, so continuing on, so. By the time we actually start the game, Skyward Sword, when we play as kind of the first Link, it talks about how basically you're just Sky Knights. You ride the skies to protect Skyloft and the surrounding like sky towns and hovels and little areas.
Right.
Which, by the way, promotes the early usage of Link's modern outfit. His usual like hat and everything, his garb, like it comes from because the Sky Knights.
It's their uniform, right?
It's their uniform, exactly. Yeah. And the reason why the uniform looks like that is because it's protective and it won't fly off. The hats, for example, the reason why the hats are the way they are, they look like sleeping caps. It's not because they're sleeping caps; it's because they can ride them while riding birds and they won't fly off their heads. So like they're not like regular helmets, which could get like, you know, if you put a helmet on, the wind would get sucked under the helmet and can take the helmet right off. Where instead they have these taut leather caps that get on their head. So it's very light armor, obviously, but like it's still armor. And that's why Link wears that hat throughout, is because it was originally a Skyloft Knight hat. And Link's color was, and all the Skyloft Knights had different colors. You know, some of them wore yellow. I remember seeing one, I think, wear blue. But our boy, of course, was wearing green. And that's basically the only reason why. It's kind of coincidence, which is, I personally love those things where, like, one of the reasons why I do love Skyward Sword is because that Link is so very, like, well-rounded. He's such like he has a little bit of romance in his life, he has ambition in his life, he has power in his life, and he fights some of the most, what would be considered, raw forms of pure evil that ever plague Hyrule, even continuing on in the story. Because, like, in a Skyward Sword, you fight Demise, and you fight the giant evil... I think it's just Demise, actually. The giant spawn creature that comes from the Sealed Grounds.
Right.
And and he's basically... That's just basically the manifestation of pure evil. Like, and which is what infects people later. Like, and like, for example... And by the way, fun fact about Skyward Sword. There's a side character named Groot... And Groot is actually the early incarnation of who is Ganondorf, because he is Link's biggest rival, yet he's not evil. Because Ganondorf himself isn't inherently evil, and we'll get to that too later on. But what turns Ganondorf evil is his actions and his decisions in life that eventually awakened the evil demon Ganon within him.
Right.
So like that's what people don't. So Groot, for example, if the stars aligned the right way, if we had a Marvel's What If but a Zelda's What If, Groot could have actually unlocked Ganon the way he did in other stories, but instead Groot decided to help Link and Zelda out throughout Skyward Sword, and was therefore shown to be like, look, the origin of the Gerudos, which is Groot, because he kind of like later on, you know, obviously the sky people went onto the ground, and then they spread out, and they started kingdoms, and they started hovels and towns and cities everywhere on the ground, but only after Skyward Sword, which does help us move on to, of course, like the era of chaos. The sealed realm is the sacred realm is sealed. The sacred realm is can be it's a lot of different things, honestly, because the sacred realm can be sometimes described as a bridge between the dark and light realms. It can sometimes be described as the land in between. It's sometimes said to be where the Triforce is held because it's so hard to get. It's almost impossible to get to the sacred realm. You can seal things in the sacred realm. It's kind of an expansive realm, to say the least.
It's just a period of a space of whiteness that goes on forever.
And seemingly, yeah, basically. I mean, that's where Ganondorf gets fucking blasted in Ocarina. And so like that, and the sacred realm is basically used, again, it's in various games. It's used as a gateway. It's used as a bridge. It's used as a prison. And so in this version, right after we get to the Sky era, we get to the era of chaos. I like, by the way, that there's a little era there that isn't accounted for. Do you see that little there between Sky era and era of chaos?
I was just gonna say there's something there that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna put something here. We're probably gonna put something here. Maybe they did. Maybe one of the games that's come out, because this actually doesn't have Breath of the Wild or A Link Between Worlds in it. But I do know where Breath of the Wild takes place.
Link Between Worlds is officially a sequel to Link to the Past.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, they're easy to place, and we'll get to those ones too. But anyway, so moving on, we get to the Sacred Realm is sealed. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the actual planet is, like, the earth, the ground where they can live, is safe to live on now. Because in Skyward Sword, remember, there's a reason you guys lived on Skyloft. If you tried to live down on the ground in the forests, or if you tried to live in, like the desert, or the Lanayru Desert, the Farron Forest, you'd die. Like, only highly adept creatures such as Gorons, Zoras, and other creatures can live there because they've adapted to it. But basically human beings, no, they can't withstand living down there until, of course, the Sacred Realm is sealed, in which case the moblins and the more evil, chaotic creatures of the world get put away. And they get put in the Dark World, which, by the way, bear in mind, these creatures get sealed in the Dark World, which they're just kind of left to their own devices. So while all this stuff that we're talking about is going on in the Light World, there's a Dark World that's happening at the same time. So, like, the Dark World is developing the same way that the Light World is. And we see the Dark World in different games, too. We see it in, like, A Link to the Past. We see it in Ocarina of Time. Yeah. We see it in... and by the way, the Dark World is basically the exact same thing as regular Hyrule, but consumed by hatred and evil and chaos. It's basically this. It's not like a totally different dimension, necessarily. Like,
with
like,
low rule.
Yeah. Like low rule, and there are other subdimensions like low rule, for example, too, and which we can get into the method. We can also get into, like, the theories of what low rule is too. That, like, Hyrule and low rule actually work in conjunction to fight the Dark World together, because without low rule, Hyrule doesn't have its balanced sort of, like, light and darkness itself. Because, like, one of the reasons why Hyrule remains in peacetime most of the time is because of a balance of light and darkness. Like, there's still wars going on. Like, right. just because the darkness and demons and evil monsters aren't taking over Hyrule doesn't mean that, like, the Farron province and the Lanayru province didn't go to war together to each other. Like, Kakariko could have been a bigger city and gone to war with the castle town. You know what I mean? That could have happened once. So, like, bear those things in mind. That, like, it just means peace from evil darkness. It doesn't necessarily mean peace from...
It's still a world run by people.
Yeah.
And people like power.
Exactly. So, like, there's always things going on. And that's why people like Ganondorf are able to take over and then achieve these profound levels of evil deeds. Which, of course, are metaphors in real life to things like, totalitarianism and such things. So anyway, we can finally get to the Minish Cap. Yay! So I don't know much about the Forest era, to be completely honest. I only played half of Minish Cap, and I never played Four Swords. But what I do know about these games very much is the evil Vadi is one of the very first evil sorcerers that comes of the land. So bear in mind, Era of Chaos and the Era of Prosperity, you know what I mean? Like the establishment of the Hyrule Kingdom and everything. Like,
right.
Again, there's still a lot going on there. They talk about it in Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker. The history of Hyrule is very bloody. It's a very bloody one. So, like, after the establishment of the Hyrule Kingdom, of course, there arose, well, how did you can always ask, how was the Hyrule Kingdom established appropriately? Was there any foul play there? Yeah, of course there was.
Yeah.
And it was evil magic. And so the evil sorcerer Avadi isn't necessarily from the time of establishing Hyrule as a kingdom, but he was a student of the practices that helped establish Hyrule. Because let's be honest, Hyrule Kingdom was established through war and murder and typical things. So, like, eventually they wanted to be good, and that's all great and good and cute. Like, they're like, no, we're going to be a good kingdom now. Yay, yay, great. But, that's not how kingdoms start.
Yeah.
So, they
had to take over somebody or absorb somebody.
Exactly. Or, take in some kind of peoples. So... in the Minish Cap, the Rise of Evil Vadi is basically like the sorcerer, in a sense, is trying to bring, this kind of darkness back into the world because he's kind of like, well, this is what we are. We are this. This is like, so he tries to bring basically what is demise in Ganondorf back, or what will eventually be Ganon and Ganondorf. So he's like trying to bring that evil spirit and darkness back. And so and the Four Swords Adventure is basically a direct sequel to that, where Vadi's back. Kill him again.
Yeah, I played both. Minish Cap I thought was just boring, but...
It's not super... That's why I kind of stopped halfway through.
Yeah, Four Swords I played with some friends, and it's a little entertaining game.
Yeah.
I don't think I made the connection that it's the same bad guy.
I only knew it was the same bad guy because of, again, the excessive amount of theory videos that I've watched over the years.
Yeah, it's like I think in most people's heads they don't understand that it's the same character.
Exactly.
I mean, they look the same, sure, but it's like, the games didn't come out together. And they're not very, in my mind, there's no connection between those two except the art of Link.
Yeah, and similar. I don't know if this is a Band-Aid that needs ripping off, but it's never the same Link, guys. Or it's very rarely the same Link, I should say. Like, sometimes it's the same Link, but it's almost always a new Link. Like the Skyward Sword Link is not the same Link as Minish Cap. It's been thousands of years since then. That Link is long dead.
He got reincarnated.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Like in real life, heroes are reincarnated.
Yep.
And so,
like me, I'm Napoleon.
Who knows? We could be reincarnations of great kings of empires. One time I had a tarot reading of me, and I had the Emperor card pulled, and it was upside down, meaning that in a previous life I could have very well have been an emperor, and even right now I am somebody who is, but like it's upside down because I'm somebody who I don't like authority.
Oh, it's upside down because you're Emperor Couscous.
No. And I'm Alexander the Great. Exactly, Soundwave. Anyway, so that's the reincarnation theory. That's Zelda. There you go. So anyway, back to it. So after the Four Swords and stuff, you have the Hyrulean Civil War. Yes. One of the very first Hyrulean Civil Wars. It's actually described at the very beginning of Ocarina of Time when a Hylian mother and a baby go into the woods, and the Hylian mother drops her baby boy at the foot of the Great Deku Tree and begs the Great Deku Tree to look after her child. To which he responds, "Yeah, but he's going to grow up to be something else." And she goes, "Just keep him safe," because she's just a mom who wants her baby boy protected. But Great Deku Tree, he's a wise tree, He's been around.
Yeah, he's an elder thing.
Yeah, that Great Deku Tree took one look at little baby boy Link from Ocarina of Time and went, "That's a special kid. That's a special kid right there. That kid's going to be special." And he was. Because here we go to Ocarina of Time, arguably, again, the most influential game in the entire franchise.
Wait, what's the Civil War about? Do we know?
I mean, basically Hyrulean Civil War. People thinking they want to rule. They like other people thinking they need to rule. Other Hyruleans wanting to rule other Hyruleans. Gerudo's rising up against the people of Clocktown City and the people of Kakariko, and you know what I mean.
Right.
One of the reasons why in Ocarina of Time there's like the villages are so small is because they came off of a civil war. Like there's a lot of dead people from
not because the size of Nintendo's cartridge.
Yeah. Well, that's how Well, that's how they justify. Like you can always imagine. You know what I mean? Like Kakariko Village would have been bigger if they had the resources. But like
it's like we know in our head it would have been a bigger place. There wasn't actually 7 people living in a town.
Yeah, and they're all conveniently different families. Never played Ocarina of Time. Well, spoiler alert. Definitely, you're gonna get some major fucking spoilers here. But
it's okay. You played the sequel.
Oh, you played Majora's Mask. That's right. Thankfully, Majora's Mask isn't really it's not like you need to know everything that happened in Ocarina of Time. The thing you need to know most about the sequel of Majora's Mask is Link's kind of already a badass. You're playing as a super big badass, but that's about it. Anyway, so we're at Ocarina of Time. You get a little baby boy waking up in a big tree who thinks, "Hey, I'm a little kokiri. I'm a little child of the forest." But a fairy hasn't come to me, and the Great Deku Tree's like, "Hey, come over here. I'm summoning you." And then the little piece of shit needs to get you a sword and shield, whatever. But then when you talk to the Great Deku Tree and you get everything you need to, he kind of tells you the truth. He rips the Band-Aid off. He goes, "Son, you're not a kokiri. You're not a little kid. Hate to tell you this, you're gonna get old one day.
You're about to do this thing called puberty that none of your pals have done.
And you're gonna start feeling things for Saria, and you need to stop that."
No, Link.
No, bad Link. She's gonna stay the same, and you need to get older. Go to the ranch. She becomes a babe when she gets older. Oof. I simp for Malin. Everybody knows this. Adult Malin. Oof. That redhead. Oof. Anyway.
I'm more of a simp for Rita. I'm joking.
Anyway. So, he gets told that he's going to get older. And he's got a journey ahead of him to save Hyrule. Because there's dark clouds ahead. There's some dark skies afoot. Oh, and meanwhile, by the way, and then you actually see this. So, in Ocarina of Time, after you help the Deku Tree out and you go meet Zelda for the first time, Zelda actually is already knee-deep in some shit. I would actually love if they made like an Ocarina of Time remake, but you play as Zelda. Imagine the whole story of the Ocarina of Time, but you're playing as her character instead. Because the first child Zelda story, it's less action-packed, but it's super like political and diplomatic. Like, because Zelda, when you find her, is already having basically major panic attacks about what's going on. Because, bear in mind, the Civil War only ended a couple years prior to all of Kid Link and Kid Zelda meeting each other. Maybe only like 10 years or so. Because I think Child Link is between the ages of 10 and 12, I want to say. Because you're around 10 years old or something when you start the journey?
I think it's 10, yeah. That's like when the Kokiri stop being like growing.
Yeah, so it's like around 10 years old. Although I do think in Majora's Mask you're 14. Because I think the journey itself of Ocarina of Time takes a little while, and then you're off on your own a year later. But because Majora's Mask takes place technically a year after the events of Ocarina of Time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll get to that. Meanwhile, Zelda is trying to freak out and trying to convince her father, hey, don't make a deal with this Ganondorf guy. Ganondorf was basically making a deal with the King of Hyrule to essentially be his right-hand man. He's like, hey, let me be your hand. Basically, the hand of the king, if Game of Thrones terms. Like, let me be your hand. Let me be, your leading commander in your armies. You know what I mean? Because Ganondorf was not the leader during a civil war, but he was like a general. So he led, from what I understand, he led factions in the Gerudo army to war, but he wasn't like the leader or anything like that. But now he was. This is years after the Civil War, so he's the leader now. And so and he's like, hey, we're good now. We Gerudos and Hylians, we're cool now. See, let's work together. Let's make the ultimate team up. Hyrule and Gerudos, come on, let's dance, let's go, let's fuck, come on.
And the
Zelda's
king's like, hell yeah.
And Zelda's like, no, please don't do this, Dad. God, bad idea, bad. Getting some red flags here. Getting some big red flags.
Which, honestly, Zelda, a little racist, but it's okay.
A little racist.
Don't know what prompted that idea, Zelda.
Jeez. Zelda. God. Aryan
I don't
bitch,
care that
no.
you were right, but, I mean...
yeah, like, it's implied, too, at this point that Zelda has, like, the lingering Triforce of Wisdom in her already, so, like, she's right.
Yeah.
So, like, she's right about it. And you come in, and then she meets you, and she's like... But bear in mind, Zelda, up to this point, has only had dreams of a possible savior. She's not convinced that savior is going to be true. So she, up until she meets Link, is just like, fuck, my father's going to make a deal with this basically warlord, and then he's going to take over, and Hyrule's going to be plunged into darkness, the likes of which we haven't seen since, the Sacred Realm was sealed, before the era of chaos, before the Minish Cap even happened. Like, Zelda knows, like, this isn't just like Civil War darkness. This isn't just war darkness. This is something else. Something else is going on here.
Entering the realm of magical demon shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this ain't spears and swords anymore. And Zelda was 100% correct. But then conveniently, a little boy from the forest comes with a little green emerald and goes, hey, I'm supposed to show this to you or some shit? And she goes, oh my God, no fucking way.
It's real!
Like, she's like, this fucking real. She's losing her, like, in the scene too, she's like losing her mind. She's like, oh my God, you're real. The boy from the forest, you're real. Holy crap. So we do have a chance. I'm not tripping balls. Like, it's also like, what you realize is this character of Zelda is very well written in the way of, like, she's basically a 10-year-old going through a midlife crisis, like level of anxiety. You know what I mean? She's pulling her fucking hair out. She has no idea what's going to happen here, and then all of a sudden, like, a solution comes about, which is ironic because they're kids. So, like, everybody will look at them as like,
you're just playing. You have an overactive imagination.
Exactly. So it's like, even though to Zelda this is the most, like, because clearly she sees Ganondorf and she sees this darkness overtaking Hyrule. Again, darkness that Hyrule hasn't seen in hundreds or thousands of years. And she's just like, this is something else entirely. Then she sees the green boy walk in, and she sees the counterbalance light walk in, and she goes, thank God. And she's like, thank fuck. So she sends him on the journey. She gives him a note that says, I'm Zelda, I'm letting him do anything she wants. And there's literally a lovely scene where, like, you go up to a guard to try to climb Death Mountain. Because bear in mind, regular people aren't allowed up Death Mountain for their own safety. It's called Death Mountain for a fucking reason. Like, I'm kind of walking you guys through Ocarina of Time a little bit, and we'll fast forward, don't worry. But because it's such a kind of important game that I really want to, like, drive these parts home. And again, not just important. It's not. It's in my top 5 favorite games. Bear in mind, like, personally, but it's not my favorite Zelda game. Majora's Mask. But and then honestly, followed up by that, you got Twilight Princess and Wind Waker and
my top will always be Link to the Past.
It's so good.
It's the first one I played from start to finish.
I mean, it's phenomenal
on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of Zelda until Ocarina of Time. But after that, I played Link to the Past. And I had never played Ocarina of Time. I had just seen my brother play Ocarina of Time. I had watched the gameplay, I think, like, twice. He went through it. But I'd never actually had played a Zelda game until Link to the Past. And it was my first one, so it sticks with me.
I'm going to... fun little advertisement pitch, shilling real quick. I'm almost hitting 400 followers, but when I get to almost 500 followers, I'm going to do a Ocarina of Time stream where I just try to play the whole game in one sitting. And
Hell yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to make it a 500 streamer reward or if I'm going to make it a 500 stream push, where, like, I'm going to do it and try to push 400 or 500 that day. But we'll see. Anyway, still a little selfless promotion there.
Little twitch.tv/Pat Weston promotion.
A little bit. Anyway, because right now I'm playing through... I do want to do a Link to the Past playthrough soon, by the way, though. I was thinking about doing that. It was actually either going to be that or Twilight Princess, but I did Twilight Princess because I don't know. But anyway... Anyway, so what we were talking about was this adorable scene. Link takes the letter that Zelda wrote to this guard that says, hey, let me up the mountain, please. And the guard's like, you're a kid. okay, if Zelda really wants you to go up, I'll let you up, but you're a dumb kid. I'm not doing this. If you die, it's not my fault.
It's not my. I am. Can I sign a waiver?
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for this.
And then the next time you talk to him, he's like, "Hey, kid, can you get me a mask?" Anyway.
Yeah.
You're a kid. You like kid stuff. You're not trying to save the world or anything. So anyway, Zelda does, though. Bear in mind, when Link meets Zelda for the first time, she immediately asks him to undergo this journey. He's a 10-year-old boy. He's got a lot of his childhood left. That's all I'm saying. And she is basically being like, hey, you fuck your childhood. Like, your childhood is stupid. You need to save the world now, please. Go. Now go save the world. And that's what happens. I mean, he's down with it. He's totally down. He's like,
Yeah.
He's like, I just found out that my entire childhood is basically a lie, so I have nothing, so okay.
I have nothing. Let's go.
It's basically what happens it's really sad. Ocarina of Time Link is very, actually one of the most tragic stories of any of the Links. Because he kind of fades away to obscurity in some ways. He saves everybody and just fades away.
Yeah.
But like, so after he, saves the Gorons and then saves the Zoras, he helps Hyrule realize that there's hope and that there's a way you can actually unite the forces of Hyrule as opposed to draw them away, which is what Ganondorf was trying to do over time, especially with his unity with the king. However, when Link collected the Deku Emerald, was it the Kokiri Emerald? The Ruby...
the ruby from the Gorons, the emerald from the Kokiri, and the sapphire from the Zora.
Yes. When he collected those are basically the 3 keys you need to unlock the Sacred Realm. And so he unlocked the Sacred Realm so he could get to the Master Sword, because that was Zelda's plan. Zelda's like, yo, if you get the Master Sword, let's fuck it over. Let's do this. Which is kind of a childish plan, to be honest. Get the big sword. Kid, get the big sword and swing it at the bad guy,
Yo, stab that dude.
Yeah, stab that dude. A little childish, to be honest. But that's, they're 10. What do they know? Because Ganondorf, on the other hand, knew exactly what was going on. Had no idea how to get the ruby, the sapphire, and the emerald. No idea. But he knew that the Hyrule royal family did. And he knew that a foolish little girl and little boy could potentially find those things. So when you collect those 3 items and unlock the Sacred Realm to get that Master Sword, you end up getting sealed in there for 7 years. And in that 7 years, you grow up. And that's why you go from child to adult. But in those 7 years, Ganondorf was able to access the Sacred Realm as well, which means he was able to have that bridge between the Dark Realm and the Light Realm. So he brought his army to Hyrule and took over. Killed thousands of people, left hundreds without homes. He made the residents of Castletown flee to Kakariko Village. He even took over Lon Lon Ranch, which in itself could be its own town, honestly. After a while. If you think of Zelda on a bigger scale like that, try to think more nuanced about Zelda. Don't think the 64-bit pixels. Think the actual story.
Yeah, you have to take that with any video game story. You have to understand that things are bigger than they can show most of the time.
Most of the time,
like a game, especially older games, they can't properly show its kingdom of Hyrule. There's no one even living there. It's like 3 houses. But obviously, to our imaginations, we can know that it's a giant sprawling castle town.
Exactly. So it's and Lon Lon Ranch you could see is the same way. It's there's around a profitable ranch like that, there would definitely be other towns.
Because they're not ranching anything. Firstly.
Yeah. Well, they're just exactly.
It's
what horses.
They 4 horses. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they race them. That's not a ranch.
Cows.
That's a horse. That's a stable. So clearly, it's supposed to actually be a big ranch with ranch hands and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So but again, at this point, 7 years in the future, it's all taken over now. It's all taken over by Ganondorf. But bear in mind, Ganondorf is still a Gerudo Hylian himself. He's not entirely evil demon King Ganondorf just yet. He's corrupted by those evil powers completely. He's corrupted by the power of Ganon, but he has never been pushed so far. His evil, his darkness still hasn't been pushed because he's trying to keep Hyrule in some semblance of order still. In Ocarina of Time, when you become an adult, even though Castletown isn't a total wasteland, if you look around everywhere else, the people are still alive. He has them subjugated. He does not have them killed. He has them subjugated. If you go back to Kokiri Forest, they're subjugated by gigantic Deku Babas and Stalfos Knights, which Kokiri cannot fight at all. Kokiri can maybe take care of a regular Deku Baba. Like, you know what I mean? Like the little...
Yeah.
For those who don't know what a Deku Baba is, they're the little plants that come out and...
They're like Mario Piranha plants, basically. The ones that clap at you.
Yeah, the ones that clap at you. But he puts ones that are the size of buildings in Kokiri Forest. No, they can't fight those. Like, and Wolfos even, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, werewolves, skeleton knights, and deeper in the forest, there's like that's where the what are they called? The moblins.
Oh right, yep. The moblins are deeper in the forest because they're guarding the forest temple.
Yeah. Which are basically, for people who don't know Ocarina of Time, the moblins are like what his like main troops are.
Yeah.
Like Ganon's like seems to be like that's because they're the pig people.
Yeah. Yep, they're the main troops of the evil Lord Ganon from the Dark World. That's how you know that the Dark World was bridged over as the moblins. Like, because there are dark creatures in regular Hyrule. Like, Wolfos are part of Hyrule too. Like, they live in Hyrule as well. They're just rare. And it's kind of like, think of it in terms of The Witcher, where, like, The Witcher doesn't try to cull beasts. He tries to, like, keep their population down so that they don't terrorize people. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like population control. It's the same thing in Hyrule. It's like, they still have creatures of darkness that live in Hyrule. Like, Tactites and stuff, they still live there. But they're not abundant. They don't breed. They just kind of creep up every now and again at night, and you got to take them out. But they're not that hard to deal with. Like any knight, even like any like teenager with a sword could take anything. A normal threat, normal dark threats in Hyrule can be taken out with anybody with basic sword training. But not now. Not after 7 years with Ganondorf leading the helm. Like now it's like, again, he employs his moblins, which are towering beasts. You know, and in Ocarina of Time, they only make appearances once.
And also, instead of like an undead rising, a moblin is like a trained army.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Moblins are genuinely like they're kind of like the evil equivalents to Hylians. Like they're somewhat intelligent, but they're like, I mean, you know, they're kind of dumb, but they're good at warfare. They are very talented, skilled fighters, especially the ones in Ocarina of Time. In fact, the ones in Ocarina of Time are broken strong.
They're a bit different than you see them because you see them in pretty much every Zelda game, but in Ocarina of Time they're a little different.
Yeah, they're like huge. But that also goes to show you that, like I was saying before, bear in mind during the Minish Cap, during Four Swords, during the era of prosperity and the Civil War, there was the Dark World that was going on parallel to this Light World, and in that time, the evil spirits were training too. They were getting just as powerful. They weren't necessarily trying to go to war with the Light World, but they were going to war with each other, you know? So, like, the Moblins in the era of Ocarina of Time are war machines. They are, like, well-trained, well-greased war machines. So, like, when they take over, it's no surprise. And Ganondorf, and by the way, Ganondorf is fun in this one. And because if you dive into the temples that you have to go to with Link, because first there's Temple of Time, which does count as one of the temples. Temple of Time, the Forest Temple, the Fire Temple, the Water Temple, the Spirit Temple, and the Shadow Temple. All of those have different levels of how Ganondorf was able to fuck with them. The Forest Temple, Ganondorf was easily able to fuck with. Ganondorf, the second he saw little Link as a 10-year-old boy, he was like, oh, you're from the forest. Okay, I'm going to go there. Like, he knew how to fuck with Link immediately. That's why when you're an adult and you go to the forest, it's plagued with, like, all those things, and it has moblins in front of it. Because he's literally looking at you going, you're not doing anything about this. And whereas the Fire Temple, he barely did anything there. He took Volvijaya, which is the giant dragon thing, the giant serpent dragon, and he had all the Gorons rounded up and taken for feasting, basically. Yeah. He's like, because he doesn't want to fight them. Ganondorf doesn't want to fight the Gorons. If the Gorons went down, and they could take down the Moblins easily. Like, they're giant rock creatures, you know what I mean? Like, if they had a bunch of rolling Gorons at Moblins, it'd be over for the Moblins. So, like, he needed them kidnapped. So Ganondorf literally did everything he could. He froze the Zoras. Like, he's like, okay, the Zoras actually have forms of martial arts, which you kind of learn in Majora's Mask a little bit. And Zoras are very much like, they're very powerful warriors too. So he's like, how do I disable them? Well, let me put them in permanent hibernation. So, like, he literally goes over each one of the races in different areas and shuts down each area from ever potentially uprising them. With Kakariko Village, Kakariko could make a militia. They have all the people that ran away from Castletown too, so they still have an army of guards there.
But what if they were spooked so hard?
Basically. That's kind of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, that is it.
That is exactly. Ganondorf was like, yeah, if I make them think that their old ancestors are coming out of the graves, they're not gonna fucking do anything else. They're gonna worry about the evil people coming from the graveyard and the bottom of the well, which, by the way, still to this day, one of the scariest levels in the Zelda franchise.
The bottom of the well is great.
Horrifying. It's so good though. But like Kakariko's not gonna fucking think about rising up against Ganondorf then. And then of course there's the Spirit Temple, which is just deep buried in the forest, and he's like, well, my Gerudos are defending that. I'm not worried about it. Which, by the way, he leaves completely unguarded. Like, he's so cocky that his Gerudos have got it under control at the Gerudo Fortress. He leaves the Spirit Temple completely unguarded. Like, it's only like his Ganondorf's mothers, which is weird. I mean, I don't know what's going on with them, actually. I don't understand. Ganondorf's mom's in Ocarina of Time. Did they give birth? Was one of them like a surrogate mom type situation, or did they fuse together to make that super? Like the final form that they take in the game. Like,
wait, is that Ganondorf's mom?
Yeah,
I never knew that.
I think that I'm 99% certain that's Ganondorf's mom, but like, because they're old women, they're super fucking old. So like, and Ganondorf at this point in the story is like 50 or 60. He's pretty old himself. Like, he's up there. Or maybe he's 40. Maybe he's a little younger. Maybe I'm giving not enough credit, but a little younger. But no, like they're old as dirt. So I'm trying to think of, like, did they have Ganondorf when they were in their fused form, or was it like one of them and they're like lovers? Because that makes sense, because the Gerudos are a female-dominated society, so they definitely, they don't use men for anything but sperm.
Well, I got the answer.
Oh yeah, okay.
So their fused form, Twin Rova,
yes,
is the surrogate mother of Ganondorf.
Got it. Okay, that also, by the way, completely justifies Ganondorf's power, because it took the fusion of two powerful Gerudo sorceresses to make Ganondorf, basically. Like, so basically they were planning on actually, fuck, we should get some history on Twin Rova more, because clearly they were the ones planning this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Ganondorf was just a baby that happened to be perfect for that. They're like, perfect, we got him. Like, if anybody's seen Hunter x Hunter, it's like the Ant Queen. Man, that's fucking wild.
So apparently, it's not that much to get into for this Twin Rova. Twin Rova has a couple appearances in other games, but for this one, there are 400-year-old sorceresses who are twins, who fuse together to create Kotak and Kome, are their name. Kotake and Kome, I think is how you say it. They fuse to create Twin Rova to summon dark energies into themselves to give birth to Ganondorf. So he's technically a virgin birth. Wow,
he's Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
He's Jesus. So Ganondorf is Jesus.
he's just energy from the dark realm, I guess. Dark world is what it makes it, is what it alludes to.
Yeah, so it's literally dark world sperm.
So he's evil incarnate.
Evil incarnate. Yeah. Damn. He is the king of evil. So he had it going from the very beginning. So that was what was going on. So yeah, during the Civil War, he was just basically like trying to work his way up the ranks in the Gerudo Kingdom. And then by the time, evil come, evil come, evil come. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, basically. Evil will come.
Yeah, evil will come. But yeah, so he was basically just biding his time until he could take over the Gerudos, and then that was it. And then it took over. Man, that's some heavy shit.
Yeah.
That's extra heavy. That makes Ocarina of Time way, way more, too. So anyway, though, here's where the timeline gets fucking wonky. So after you save all the temples, you bring the sages together, you end racism.
More parties in a field.
You basically exactly what you do. Like you because you bring all of the races, including the Gerudos, to the light. Like, because even the Gerudos join your side. Like,
yeah.
So like you literally like you end racism and then save the world. It's great. Good job. And it's a white boy who does it. Sorry. Oh God. But I couldn't help myself. So anyway, but however, as you can see, at the bottom of Ocarina of Time, there are 3 different timelines. There's the hero is defeated and the hero is triumphant. In Ocarina of Time, it is considered the kind of yin, yang, and yang, I guess, of the timeline, of where like there are 3 different things that happen. If you defeat Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time and defeat Ganon. By the way, Ganon's first manifestation is Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf transforms into the evil pig beast from the Dark Realm, Ganon, in Ocarina of Time, technically, canonically, for the first time.
Yes, and canonically that's the first appearance of Ganon, and game-wise, that is... Ocarina of Time is Zelda 4.
Yes.
So the reason why Ganon's in it is just because he's the bad guy, right? I don't think this was written out. Like this wasn't planned, I don't think, as deeply at that point.
No, at this point it was not written that way.
So
when Ocarina of Time was made, it was just like the next
Yeah,
Zelda.
Ganon was the bad guy, so he showed up in that game, and and now we know that was his first appearance.
Fun facts for those who are into the writing lore of side of this instead of the nerdy lore. Ocarina of Time was written to be a similar 3D to Link to the Past. It was literally kind of supposed to be a very, very similar motive for that. But instead of going backward in time, you go forward in time. That's basically the whole difference. And because they wanted, because A Link to the Past was so successful and people loved it so much that they wanted to keep a lot of the same tropes and ideas. So that's why Ocarina of Time had time travel. That's why it had a similar start with the green, red, and blue dungeons at the beginning. It had a lot of the same items in it even. Was because they wanted they wanted it to be 3-dimensional, which of course changed everything together. That's why honestly people debate A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time as the best Zelda games of all time, is because and where I'll just go when somebody says one of them's better than the other, I'll go okay, because I'm to me I'm canonically they're very similar, though because of the timeline, it makes A Link to the Past way fucking cooler, by the way. Because if you can see it in the timeline, it's in the Heroes Defeated timeline, which is super cool. But anyway, we'll get into that. So I'm talking about the Heroes Triumphant. So you beat Ganondorf, you beat Ganon, and at the end of the game, adult Link and adult Zelda stand in the Sacred Realm, now purified, and Zelda's looking at you and is overwhelmed with grief. She is realizing that she did something that she thinks is an egregious sin. She kept Link from a childhood. So she sends Link back in time. She thinks that this future is not for him. And it's true. It's not. He was kept there. He was literally kept in a time capsule for 7 years to fight in the future. He is not from the future. He's still Link from the past. So then she sends him back. She sends him back to his childhood. Bear in mind, though, this is a child Link now with all the experience and knowledge of adult Link. So everything that adult Link went through, you can imagine, by the way, that going through the forest, fire, water, shadow, spirit temple probably took him months, if not years, to do. Because bear in mind, there's other things going on besides just, going into the temples. Because Link has to do missions to get into the temples. So you can imagine that all of these things took Link a long fucking time. Yeah. And then Zelda sends him back as a kid. So he's now, once again, a maybe now 11, 12-year-old boy, maybe skirting on 13, with the knowledge of a basically 18, 19, 20-year-old guy, which is a lot. There's a big, huge difference between a 10-year-old person and a 20-year-old person. So at that point, Link is now, there are now two eras, the adult era and the child era. In the adult era, there is now no Link. Ganondorf is sealed away, and Zelda is there to rule and try to once again build Hyrule back up brick by brick. But after the Hyrulean Civil War and then now the Dark War on top of that, Hyrule's not looking too good, and it's really tough to build. So even though in the adult era Ganondorf is defeated, it's a time of peace, but it's not a time of prosperity. Meanwhile, in the child era, Link goes back in time and immediately goes to Zelda and says, "You were right," and has all the things to prove it. He's even, because when Zelda sends Link back in time, he still has the Ocarina of Time. He still has all of the medallions. He still has all of the powers and items that he had. He can prove to Zelda and the king, I went to the future, I stopped this motherfucker, and because he's about to take over. So they seal the Sacred Realm. They protect the Sacred Realm, and Ganondorf is then sealed away somewhere else. And that's all.
It's probably just a physical prison.
Well, no, because we go over this. Trust me, it's cool.
I even see that. But also, I just want to point out, Link could have just fucking killed him at that point with all that gear. Like
as a kid, though,
at that point of Ganondorf, before he was all power, he's the dude.
But he couldn't have killed. No, he couldn't have. He still needs to kill him with the Master Sword.
Even at that point,
he can't pick it up. He can't lift it. He's too young.
No. But does Ganondorf need to be killed with the Master Sword? At that point, he's just an evil-born Gerudo.
But remember, he was born of the evil seed from the Dark World.
Yeah, that's true.
He and the legend, the Master Sword is called the Blade of Evil's Bane. So
and then he just does his Falcon Punch and would just destroy Link. You're right.
Yeah, it would be over. So instead what they do is they basically just prove that he's evil, and then the sages put him somewhere else. Wink, wink. Bear in mind, this is the child era, and if you want to look ahead, you can. They don't put him in the Sacred Realm, obviously, because they sealed it to protect it. But anyway, so after Link is a rat and rats on Ganondorf, he rats on Ganondorf, gets Ganondorf sealed away somewhere else. Or actually, technically, I guess this is before this happens. So Ganondorf goes back to Gerudo and goes back to the Gerudo Kingdom and tries to hide away there, but he gets caught eventually. Link goes away because at the very end of Ocarina of Time, his good friend and companion Navi the fairy, who's been with him the entire time of Ocarina, throughout the entirety of Ocarina of Time, she goes away. And Link, after a while, realizes, I don't have any friends.
No one remembers who I am.
No one knows who he is because he technically never did anything. He technically never saved the world. He never saved the Gorons. He never saved the Zoras. He just, Oh no, he did save the Gorons and Zoras, but he never went on to do anything else. He never saved them from the dragon. He never saved them from the ice. He never saved them from the underworld. He never, you know what I mean?
Well, wouldn't he have just done the Kokiri stuff after going back in time?
No,
because he wouldn't have needed to get the crystals wouldn't he have just gone to Zelda after going back in time, or
he gets sent back to put the sword back too. So he gets sent. So he gets sent back. It's right after he does the whole. He opens it up. So he opens the Sacred Realm, but he goes back before it matters. Ironically, the canon would be him literally picking the sword up, disappearing for 7 years, putting it back, and walking out to rat on Ganondorf.
Yeah,
that's basically what happened in the child era. That's all that happened, which is kind of fun. Well, except for the Deku Tree was still killed. Dodongo's cavern was still taken over by a big Dodongo, and Jabu Jabu still had a virus. So you still did those things. Those are so Link still had some good graces with the Gorons and the Zoras. So people still liked him, but he wasn't he wasn't like.
And he probably broke too many pots to have good standing with anybody.
Yeah, exactly. But because of everything that happened, he was named a guardian, and he was then guardian of Zelda. So he was one of Zelda's royal guards from then on out. But before that, actually, before he's named one of Zelda's royal guards, he goes on to the Majora's Mask quest to go find Navi. That's the whole thing. Majora's Mask is one of my favorite games for a lot of reasons, but we're rarely going to talk about it, honestly, because I can do a whole other Lore Lords on Majora's Mask. All Majora's Mask is Link from Ocarina of Time going to find Navi, and then finding another country that's in arguably worse dire straits than Hyrule was. But then when Link comes back to Hyrule, because he does come back, he leaves Termina after Majora's Mask. He goes back to Hyrule, and he becomes a royal guard to Zelda, because again he still has good standings with Gorons and Zoras. Trade becomes okay again, and Hyrule becomes way more prosperous because, bear in mind, there was no destruction. Ganondorf never took over, so Hyrule got to continue its prosperity from onward, except now the Gorons and Zoras wanted to work with them. So now for thousands of years, the Hylians, Zoras, and Gorons were working together in peace and harmony until Twilight Princess. Because Ganondorf was sealed away by the 6 sages. Not the same 6 sages that we got to know in Ocarina of Time, because those 6 sages were specifically the 6 sages of the adult era. Bear in mind. So these 6 sages were different in Twilight Princess. And you actually see this in Twilight Princess. There's a cutscene. We might actually even get to it tonight when I'm playing, and it's one of my favorite cutscenes in the whole game. It shows Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time getting imprisoned after Link ratted on him. Like, it literally has that scene in it where, like, Link goes back, tells Zelda and the king, and Ganondorf gets chained up, and he gets sealed away in the Twilight Realm, not the Dark Realm, not the Sacred Realm, the Twilight Realm, another place in between. So he gets sealed away. The Demon King Ganondorf is executed, quote unquote. He is stabbed. He is stabbed with a sage light sword, basically, but it doesn't kill him because it can't kill him, because it can't kill him. Only one thing can kill him.
What's that, Pat?
The Master Sword. So he gets stabbed through the chest with a light sword. Laughs about it. Oh god. Hopefully we get to the scene, but if we don't, it's such a good scene. He laughs about it, and then he pulls the sword out of his chest, uses it, takes it as his own, grabs one of the sages by the faces, and just crushes a sage's face in his bare hands. And it's just like, you learn in Twilight Princess that Ganondorf is fucking crazy. He's not just like an evil, I am the Demon King, I am going to rule over and subjugate all. No, he's like, I'm going to subjugate you by torturing everybody you know and love and making you like just glossy-eyed for the rest of your life. Like, he wants you. You learn just how evil he is in Twilight Princess. And so, and then you basically learn in Twilight Princess that as time goes on, like, Ganondorf has basically been doing the same thing that he was doing before, or the demon were doing in the Dark Realm, is he's fostering power in the Twilight Realm. So after they seal him away, this happens right after Ocarina of Time. So after Ocarina of Time, he gets sealed away, like maybe a couple of years after, in the Twilight Realm. Thousands of years go by with Ganondorf sealed in the Twilight Realm. So there must have been Twilight Wars going like crazy between Midna, who we meet in Twilight Princess, and Ganondorf, who eventually, of course, gets kicked out. Because in Twilight Princess, Ganondorf wins. Ganondorf takes over the Twilight Realm, and with his right-hand man, Zant, who is now calls himself like the King of the Twilight, they kick out the actual Queen of the Twilight, or the Twilight Princess, Midna, and now you have to go on a journey to then... Because Ganondorf at this point, he likes the Twilight Realm. He's a big fan of it at that point, but he's still trying to get darkness to take over. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm using Twilight, I'm using darkness, I'm using the whole thing. Fuck you, Zelda. Fuck you, Light World. Fuck you, Link. Like, and by the way, when he sees you, you, Link, in Twilight Princess, let's just say he gets a little triggered because he has thousands and thousands of year old memory of you. You know, like this little shit wearing green. You know, this little fucking asshole. Yeah. Which is great, and I love it. It's so cool. So then, it's so good. So again, yeah, we learn how just evil and how the depths of how evil Ganondorf is in Twilight Princess. But then you stop him, and you don't just seal him away this time at the end of Twilight Princess. Spoiler alert: you kill him. You plunge the Master Sword straight into his chest, and he's done. It ends him. He collapses onto his knees, and he falls onto the ground, dead. For the first time in at least this timeline, the King of Evil, the actual King of Evil, is dead. I mean, evil went back to the Dark Realm. The evil energy that Ganondorf had in him just went back to the Dark Realm, but he was no longer a threat. Thousands of years goes by, Four Swords Adventures happens, the reincarnation of Ganondorf, resurrection of Vadi. That shit happens. So anyway, that's the Child Era, which is arguably one of the most exciting eras because it has Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess in it, which are two of my favorite games, so I love that a lot. And it really does show the growth and prosperity of the Hylian people, and because Hyrule is doing really well until the Twilight takes over. You know what I mean? They don't really have that many wars going on. They're not really fighting that much. You know what I mean? I'm not to say that there aren't some squabbles between the Linearu provinces and the Faerun provinces and the Elden provinces. Like, there's probably some feuds and maybe some tussles and some wars here and there. But again, we got peace, baby. And then, of course, again, like I said, in Four Swords Adventures, the resurrection of Ganondorf, the resurrection of Vadi.
Which, by the way, fantastic game.
Four Swords Adventures?
Four Swords Adventures is absolutely fantastic to play with three friends, to have a group of four.
We should try to do that.
I would 100% be down. I absolutely loved that game. I played with some of my friends, and it's very good.
We should definitely do that. But anyway, so that's the end of the child era. Not a very long one, is it? The adult era is okay. Again, back to context. The adult era is the era that you left behind in Ocarina of Time after you sealed Ganondorf away. After Zelda sent you back into the past, now there is the adult era, which is again, it's not that great. Ganondorf already took over. Ganondorf already murdered thousands of people. You saved the world, sure, but it's at what cost? Like the Zoras were just recently freed. The Gorons were just recently freed. They're all trying to pick up the pieces of this evil, dark war that just happened between Ganondorf, Link, and Zelda, basically. And so, it's hard. It's really tough to bring it back. And unfortunately, Ganondorf wasn't killed. He was just sealed away in the Sacred Realm, which was very easy to break into. Fast forward, not even that long, only a couple decades, maybe even just 100 years after Link saves the adult timeline, Ganondorf is brought out of the Sacred Realm. He's resurrected once again, and it is the same Ganondorf from the one that is defeated. And then, so what does Ganondorf do this time? Well, he decides to take a different approach. He seals Hyrule in an alternate bubble dimension, basically, and then floods it. He makes the entire thing an ocean where only the mountaintops of the fair places where we once were still are. And it's, by the way, surmised that Outset Island, because now we're getting to Wind Waker, which is awesome. Which is
my number 2.
Oh God, Wind Waker. We did a playthrough recently of that one on my stream, and that game gets me teary-eyed. I get glassy-eyed every time I play Wind Waker.
Every time I go underwater,
it
hits me like a ton of bricks.
It's amazing, dude. It's so good. When you go underwater and you see Hyrule and you realize what happened, you're just kind of like, oh,
yeah. You see it all. You can recognize it. You're like, oh no.
Yeah. And then there's those scenes with like your grandmother, which makes you want to cry. And then there's those scenes with like your sister. Oh my God, Wind Waker is. Oh God. If you want to play a tear-jerking Zelda game, Wind Waker is the one for sure. Also, great gameplay, phenomenal levels, great bosses. Just overall, one of the greatest Zelda games of all time. Also, the music in it. Can we talk about one of the greatest themes ever, which is just the ocean theme?
Yep.
Like, it's the. I every time I hear the ocean theme, I get goosebumps and chills. Like when you start sailing, it gives me chills. It's just amazing. I also think Zelda. We were talking about Final Fantasy's music, on par and parallel with Final Fantasy's music. Koji Kondo and the other composers of the Zelda franchise.
Yeah,
absolutely. Fucking geniuses.
Nintendo is definitely, I think in America, probably more recognized, but in Japan, they're often considered the number 2 in video game music to Square Enix.
That's fair.
And very close by not like silver medal, but like they're like it's just like they're really popular. And Nintendo kind of set the bar for Square Enix back in the day, even to make good music. Like the old Zelda themes, like from the original Zelda games, are so good, and they're the same ones they use now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, they're so good. They're still recycling them, and they're only improving onto them and stuff. I would honestly agree with the same thing. Like if you listen to the music, when you asked me to make that Final Fantasy intro for you, I listened to Final Fantasy music because you should. If you're a musician, do that. But I was listening to it and I was loving it. I loved it. It was so beautiful.
Another good point to throw into Zelda music is a lot of the games are musically themed.
Yes, Zelda always has music themes in it. Ocarinas, in Wind Waker, it's the baton. In Twilight Princess, you can literally make music by blowing on grass, and you howl as a wolf. In what is it like? Lynx Awakening, you use a couple different instruments, actually.
I think in Oracle of Ages, you have a guitar. In Oracle of Seasons, you have a oboe.
That's
remember
right.
correctly?
Yep. There's tons of different instruments. I love it. It's very big. Yeah, music is a huge deal in Zelda. And but anyway, back to the Wind Waker. Oh, so good. So much we could talk about Wind Waker, too. We could also make a whole but anyway. Because Wind Waker is another one of those lore-heavy games, and there's a wonderful scene that happens halfway through the game. So Link's entire motivation in the first half of the game of Wind Waker is to rescue his sister, which is also Pap's main motivation in our D&D campaign, even though I haven't talked about it in like 6 sessions. But anyway, I have to answer Dan.
Same. You have to do it too.
Yeah. Anyway, tune in. Adventures of Hyperborea with the D&D. Anyway, So your motivation at the beginning is just to rescue your sister, but when Link shows up at the Forsaken Fortress to rescue his little sister, dressed in a green garb, Ganondorf looks at him and is again very much triggered. but this Ganondorf is a little different. The Ganondorf in the child era. So in the child era with Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, loses his fucking mind, goes chaotic, evil, crazy. However, in this era, in the adult era, he is released a lot earlier on. So he doesn't lose his mind as much and has a very much more stoic, still crazy, but stoic approach to his takeover.
He's calm, cool, and collected.
Very much so. So when he seals Hyrule and floods it, he's not screaming and yelling. He's just like, this is the fate. This is what needs to happen. Like, he's very much like, almost like prophet, almost like, this is the fate of this land. This is what has to be done. And when you meet him in Wind Waker, he looks at you and laments a hero like you, of fighting you before. He looks at you and is just like, there you are. There he is.
Yeah, of course you're back.
Like, he's like, oh shit. And you look totally different. You're a little bit younger too. You know, I think Wind Waker Link is like 15, maybe 14 years old. You know, he's a little younger.
I think they say 13, don't they? Because I think that's when you're 13 years old when you get the green tunic for the festival.
Yeah, that's right. Although again, you can always make the assumption that it takes a couple.
It takes time,
years,
yeah.
So yeah. But so by the end of the journey, maybe he's 14, 15 years old. But I always do that. I always play that game. That's my head. So
but again, when you first met, it would have been 13.
It would have been 13. That's the age. Because grandma gives you the ritual and you hate it because you live on a fucking tropical island and you get given a heavy wool. It's like, why? But by the way, it's also surmised that Outset Island is where Ordon is. In Twilight Princess, because they take place, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker take place around the exact same time in the timeline. Fun fact. But they just take place on obviously totally different timelines. So it's surmised that Outset Island and the islands adjacent to it are all like the Ordon province. And when you go a little bit north, that's where Faron is. Like, Faron is where the Deku is, obviously, a little bit more to that side. And then where Dragon Roost Island, that's Death Mountain. Obviously.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Very obvious,
Yeah.
Dragon and all.
Yeah, the whole dragon thing. And the lava and the ring around the top, so it's like pretty obvious. But yeah, so yeah, the dusty, smelly clothes that grandma gives you, exactly. And then Phantom Hourglass is a direct sequel to Wind Waker, where again you go to a different area, a different place, no longer in Hyrule. It's actually great. I actually loved Phantom Hourglass, honestly. I had a really good time with that game.
Phantom Hourglass was fun. I also read a theory that it's Termina.
Oh, it could be Termina on a different timeline. Because it would be flooded too.
Something reference. I think there was. I read it because there was some line in that game where someone says like, "This land flooded with the others a long time ago." So like Ganon obviously flooded Hyrule, but you can't just flood one continent. It's gonna hit everything.
Shit, I never even thought about that.
And there's a couple other things at this point. It was a post on Reddit. A guy pointed out a bunch of areas in Phantom Hourglass are like areas in Termina.
I have to go back and play that now. Oh my god, that sounds amazing. Especially because Majora's Mask is my favorite. I need to see those signs. That makes a lot of sense. But anyway, so a new continent is discovered, a new Hyrule Kingdom is founded, and Spirit Tracks.
Spirit Tracks, okay. Didn't like the game.
Not a fan either.
However, world-wise, it was cool to see
agree.
technology reach the world of Zelda, and it kind of ends on a note that like, oh, we're just going to go to modern time.
Yeah.
It's just going to keep going. They kind of hit this note of like industrialism is hitting Hyrule.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, yeah. I mean, bear in mind, though, there have always been signs of technology in the Zelda universe. Even in Skyward Sword, when you go down, all the way at the beginning, the very beginning of this timeline, you go back to Skyward Sword, you go down on the planet, there are literally creatures that are robots. There are literally AI robots. So, like, technology... And in Majora's Mask, you fight God, the giant... What is it? Ram boar?
Yeah. And he's like a I guess he could be like technology. I always figured it as like just like a construct, like a golem, like more magical.
I mean, there is magic. I think the electricity in Zelda universe is a little bit magical. I think there is an inherent bit of magic to it, but I do think that it is similar to that. But basically, Spirit Tracks is kind of this is fucked up. I'm going to relate the adult era to our own history. Think of the adult era as our own history, where like we were profoundly advanced before the Dark Ages, and then the Dark Ages happened, which is like Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. That's the Dark Ages, and then Spirit Tracks is kind of like us in the Renaissance.
Us getting back on track. Pun unintended.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, like, where the child era was, there was no need to do research and discovery and technologies. Even though technologies, by the way, in Twilight Princess did advance too. In Kakariko Village, Barnes the Bomb Guy, they work with iron, steel, blast furnaces. They work with compulsion. So they work on stuff that they could turn into trains years later. Like Twilight Princess, it's very surmised that they invented trains right after the Twilight Princess era because they were working on so many different combustion engines and stuff. They could have had cars in the Twilight Princess era in a couple of years. So, like, again, they were very advanced in that point too. But now let's talk about arguably the most compelling timeline.
My absolute favorite.
Yes, the not child or adult era, the not victory era, the timeline where Link and Zelda lose. So in Ocarina of Time, there is a third option where Link takes the medallions, he confronts Ganondorf, but Ganondorf and Ganon are just too much for him, and Link is killed. He is. I don't know how.
It's the culmination of all our failed attempts trying to kill him as a kid in Ocarina of Time.
Basically, exactly. All of your failed attempts beating him in Ocarina of Time, you did this.
Yes, you made a hero-defeated timeline where Link just got murdered.
Yeah. I'd like to think that it was pretty brutal, honestly, like, because Ganondorf was such a fucking savage person that, like, the way he killed Link was he probably just, like, split him in half. Like, it wasn't, like, a clean, like, he didn't just stab him through the chest.
At the point when he was fighting him, he was Ganon, so he could just fucking crush him with his foot.
Yeah, exactly. If they, like, did a film reenactment of it and just pulled out all the stops, everyone would leave that film going, I wish I didn't see that. Like, because Ganon would not have been gentle to Link. He would have ripped him into pieces.
So it's another important thing. So just to say, because you didn't bring it up, I get mentions here in Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf becomes Demon King Ganon.
Yes. Well, I mentioned that.
Where does Ganon, the name Ganon, is Demon King Ganon an entity already?
Ganon is the manifestation of the Dark World energy. So the little Dark World sperm that goes into Twinrova to make Ganondorf.
Right, that's Ganon.
That's Ganon. Okay, Ganondorf is the.
I wanted to get that to be said out loud because there's something I'm going to add on to the end of this.
Okay, great. Yeah, because Ganondorf is basically a Dark World Light World hybrid.
Yeah.
Kinda. But yeah. So and so in Ocarina of Time though he defeats you surmised as Ganon. So he's in his giant pig form. He's got his two big swords. Again, it's surmised that he tears you apart and he likely kills Zelda too.
And that he remains that way.
And he stays that way. Exactly. He stays that way. And this is called the decline of the Hyrule and the last hero. The last hero is Link, the one that gets killed. And then there's the Imprisoning War, which is basically just Ganon just totalitarian.
Ending the world. Yeah. He's controlling it all. It's his.
It's his.
Anyone who opposes him is imprisoned.
Yes. And that's it. And woof. Am I right, fam?
Big yikes for the entirety of the world.
Big yikes for the entirety of the world. However, that doesn't mean that the attempts at civilization to regrow again aren't there. And that doesn't mean that Ganon, for example, is going off to, to do other things. Because in A Link to the Past, we do find a Hyrule. We do find a Zelda, and we do find a kingdom that is still standing. But how? Why, you may ask? Well, because you might not be you might not be where you think you are at the beginning of the game. And Link to the Past is kind of wild for this reason, because it goes over a lot of time. And I forget how much, you might remember this better than me, but I don't remember exactly how much time you go into the past. But it's like...
Oh, A Link to the Past, I think they say the change is, I think it's 20 years.
Okay. So, basically, what you're doing in A Link to the Past is you're going back in time to prevent the Imprisoning War from getting worse, if I'm not mistaken. I
can't remember if maybe it's even 200 years. That might be what it is. It might be 200.
Yeah, because basically what you're trying to do is you're going back in time to make sure you have your future. You're basically ensuring your own future, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of Trunksing it almost. Dragon Ball Z Trunksing it almost a little bit. Even though that's not how it worked in that one. But so A Link to the Past, A Link to the Past goes on, and like we said earlier, A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, they have a lot of parallels, and that's for a reason. Like, it's because they have to do a lot of the same things in order to save the world again. Ganon is cocky. He believes that because they failed the first time, they're not going to be able to succeed the second time. So he seals away everything almost the same way that it was in Ocarina of Time. You know, like the ruby, the sapphire, the emerald, although I think they're pearls in Link to the Past, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they're...
They're called... There's a couple different names for them, but yeah.
Yeah, but they're the same things. They're the same items, basically. Like, they have the same powers. Generally speaking.
Yeah, it's the same items.
Yeah, it's the same items. So, like, but he does the same thing. He just puts them back where they were. And it's just kind of like, yeah, because it didn't work last time, why should it work this time? But this Link doesn't fail. In A Link to the Past, you don't fuck up. You don't screw up at all. You get the Triforce pieces, and then you fight the Ganon. You don't fight Ganondorf. There is no humanoid figure. You fight the big bad himself. And instead of, although this, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he have the Trident of Power instead of the swords?
He does, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So in A Link to the Past, he also has a different, and I think he gets it in the Imprisoning War. He gets basically a magical item from the Dark World called I think it's called the Trident of Power, or something simple like that. But and it's very strong. It's much stronger than his dual swords that he used before. However, this Link to the Past is way better equipped and ready, because learning from the mistakes of before, and you take down Ganon once again. And also, this isn't in this one, because this timeline was made before the game happened. A Link Between Worlds is a direct sequel to A Link to the Past. I also love A Link Between Worlds, by the way.
Link Between Worlds is great.
So
and
good.
Also the more clarification of what the hell low rule is.
Yeah.
Where it spells out that it's just a Dark World version of Hyrule.
Yeah.
And that which implies that there's also human civil or Hyrulean civilization, or Lilian, I guess, Lowlian civilization of like good people in the Dark World.
Yes. Yeah.
And you meet Dark Link as a good guy.
Yeah, and Dark Link as a good guy is basically just kind of a scummy merchant.
Yeah,
which is really funny.
He's playing a scummy merchant until he's revealed who he is.
Yeah,
but that was my favorite part of the game, is seeing Dark Link with his black hair. It's like, oh, it's just me with black hair, and it's Link.
It's Dark Link. Yeah, and it's I mean, like, because it's like, because Dark Link makes appearances in a lot of Zelda games, so like it's surmised that Dark Link is just Link from the Dark World. Like a lot of, and it's
kind of confirmed. And this one just happened to be like in a weird timeline where they needed two Links, essentially.
Yeah. I loved it, though. It was so good. Link's Awakening was great, too. Oh, Oracles of Seasons and Ages. I almost forgot about that one.
I always want to point out those are two of my favorite Zelda games of all time. I absolutely love those. I played the hell out of them when I was a kid on my Game Boy Color.
I only played Ages. And it's better if you play both. Like, it's literally like playing both is the point.
So canonically, which Hyrule Historia laid out a little more, is that it goes Season then Ages. Seasons is a direct sequel to Ages, basically, but also not, because it's an alternate world. It's like the world's kind of like two different time periods.
Yes.
In the same world, and it hints at they're like mirrors of each other. But then you find out, if you play them in order, that it's actually just like you're the same Link starting again a couple years later, because it's a different, like, it's one's the Age of Seasons, one's the Age of Ages, or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Because you meet Nehru in Ages, and then Din in Seasons, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
You actually meet the goddesses in human form, which is wild.
When you beat, it's basically the whole point is that Ganon gets resurrected by Twin Rova.
Once again.
Yep, Mom comes back. Someone else resurrects Mom, and then Mom, because they didn't know how to resurrect Ganon this time. And I think it's hinted that it's the sorcerer. I can't remember his name. The sorcerer who ends up turning himself into Ganon in Link to the Past.
Right.
It's like their disciple, their student in the future, like hundreds of years later, decides to like resurrect Ganon, but didn't get the manual.
Fun fact: the same study of the didn't get the manual. He did the same study as Vadi. So the resurrection of Vadi that we talked about in like Minish Cap and stuff. Vadi was a student of the same type.
Yeah, it's all the same connection of like just dark sorcerers, right?
These
Learning dark
sorcerers.
magic. And I guess it's a lot easier to summon Ganondorf's mom from back in Ocarina of Time than it is to summon Ganon. So they just summon Twinrova, and then you find out via dialogue in that game that Twinrova has brought her son back, basically.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh shit, God damn it, again with this shit. And then after that happens, though, isn't it surmised that Link's Awakening Link is the same one from Oracle of Seasons and Ages?
Correct.
And
Yes.
and he goes on a journey, but it's actually debated whether or not this entire game is a fever dream.
Yes. So there's two major things about it, and it's even heavily hinted at the remake. That firstly, there's Goombas. Secondly, there's some enemies from Kirby. There's some stuff in that, and just a little real life side note for people. The reason why that's even a thing is because they ran out of time programming the game and used assets that they already had. So they just basically copy and pasted from Super Mario World and put it on there.
Hilarious. I do love Link's Awakening, though. By the way.
Yeah, Aghanim said that's the Dark Sorcerer.
Thank you, Soundwave.
Yes, he becomes Ganon instead of Ganondorf, but he does it by summoning Ganon into his body.
Yes.
In Link's Awakening, it's a wild story. Yoshi's there. It's weird, but in the remake, I know I haven't played it myself, but I know that it hints the fact that like at the end of it, like you kind of wake up again. You're like, "Are you okay?" And it's just like a normal world.
Yeah. But I loved Link's Awakening. It's really great. It's a good personal journey for Link. It's not so much important for the timeline. It doesn't mean as much.
It actually kind of does nothing. But there's also a theory, just to mention, that it is a real adventure that happens in a dream world, but a dream realm, much like the Twilight realm.
Yes. Yeah, it is surmised that there is also an island that is parallel to it in the real world that is called... Oh, what's it called again? It's like, not Kanto. Jesus.
Yeah, Kanto, Japan, you know.
Yeah, Kanto, Japan. What the fuck is it called? It has a name. I can't remember what the island is called. I wrote it down in my other book. It's probably in here, honestly. Hold on. I can get into the deeper shit, honestly, here. Oh, here's Ages and Seasons. We are in Link's... Oh, yeah, we're in Link's Awakening right now. Adventure within a fleeting dream. A raging storm besets Link. This is literally what it says in the Hyrule Historia about Link's Awakening. Link was in the midst of journeying back to Hyrule by boat after finishing his training. During the voyage, he was caught upon a storm that sank his ship. Upon regaining consciousness, Link found that he had washed ashore the island of... Koholint, right? Koholint.
Right.
And the mysterious island. Link was rescued by a girl named Marin who lived on the island. He woke up to a house belonging to Terran, and the two made their home. Though Link attempted to leave the island, the citizens insisted that there was nothing beyond the ocean. And that leads to believe that he was in this other dimension. He was in this parallel world because there's literally nothing else there. But attempting to escape from the island, the mysterious owl that appeared before Link informed him that the only way to escape the island was to awaken the Windfish, which, by the way, one of the most beautiful songs in a Zelda game is the Ballad of the Windfish. Holy shit, so good. As he collected the instruments of the sirens, Link uncovered a shocking truth. The world in which he had found himself existed within the Windfish's dream, and waking the Windfish would cause the island to disappear in a stream of bubbles. The demons had attacked Link in order to preserve themselves and the existence of their island home. So
so I saw basically kind of what that spells out is I saw two different theories. That one is that the dream world is its own world, and two, that it's actually the dark world.
Oh, right, could be.
Because you just said the demon tried to preserve their home. Like maybe there were some demons that found peace in the dark world, and they're kind of keeping it in this weird creature's head.
I'm now demanding more Windfish. I want the Windfish to make a comeback. I want to see.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I mean, they did remake Awakening.
Oh God, that's true. So they want you to remember.
Yeah, they want to keep that a relevant thing. That's what I thought when that came out. I'm like, oh, you're not ignoring that existed. Interesting.
I did always think that Link's Awakening, and it's true, Link's Awakening is sometimes viewed as like the black sheep of the family because it is even Majora's Mask has more going on attached to the real world.
And no one dislikes it. In that sense,
no
it's actually a very well received game. Even back then, it was made for the Game Boy, so it was very limited in its development and its budget. So it was a kind of a weird, and it's just a weird small side game.
Yes, it was just a nice little. It was basically just like another Zelda title for you to enjoy yourself with by the time, because this was in between A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. So A Link to the Past was this gargantuan success, and then they had Ocarina of Time on the slate, but they were like, we need something in between, and we need to put something out. And then, like you said, they were on crunch time, kind of, so they used Mario assets. And that's what Link's Awakening was. So even though Link's Awakening was, put together quickly, it's still very, and again, like I said, it is good. And I would love, when I get a Switch, I'd love to get the remake, because I loved the original. So, but moving on from that, I gotta get back to my page. Where's my, okay, here we go. We have, excuse me. Thank you. The monarchs of Hyrule use the Triforce, and the tragedy of Princess Zelda the First. Even though that's not the first, but whatever. What I hear is Link is an asshole, and that intentionally destroyed the dream of a god. No. Maybe, maybe the Windfish was enjoying that dream a lot, and he's like, man, all right.
I just want to point out, now that we're here, if there's anything that I have actually watched a lot of and read a lot into, it's these two games' story and where they fit.
Oh.
Do you know the theory behind why it's called The Tragedy of Princess Zelda the First?
Well, she was put to sleep by an evil sorcerer. And
yeah.
Somebody tried to take over.
So what's the deal with the monarchs using the Hyrule? Monarchs of Hyrule use the Triforce. Honestly? What does that mean?
I don't know. We should discover this together.
So the theory is that they use the Triforce, weird way to put it, like illegally. Like they just use the Triforce, and because Hyrule was in a very bad time. It was like it was falling apart because it never fully recovered from,
Ocarina of Time.
Imprisonment War. Yeah, it never recovered, and they tried to use it to save the world and fucked up in a major way. And
they did.
The Zelda that was put in a stasis is a new Zelda from a new royal family.
Yeah, I did know
that's
that.
That's why it's Zelda the First. It's because this is a brand new start of the Hyrule royal family. And if you play Legend of Zelda, which I've actually beaten this game probably like 20 times, the aesthetic of the world is very apocalyptic.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's
people live in caves.
They live in caves, exactly.
Yeah, and the castles on the map, the little sprites, are ruins.
Yep, it's all of the old world. Like basically, if you think back to Ocarina of Time, when Ganondorf beat Link and Zelda, then he won, and he continued to win all the way up until basically the adventure of Link.
Yeah, so we keep seeing in this timeline, it keeps saying the resurrection of Ganondorf.
Yes.
The resurrection of Ganon, the resurrection of Ganon, like all that kind of stuff like that. Yeah. Basically, Link keeps getting reborn, Zelda keeps getting reborn. Ganon doesn't because he's not supposed to, right?
Yeah.
So people keep bringing him back.
Yes.
And in this world, it's believed that they use the Triforce, and Ganon was just waiting basically in hell for them to do that.
Yeah.
And when they activated it, he's like, "I'm back, bitch," and just kind of came back and just like killed all the monarchs, pro Zelda, and just kind of just started stomping over the world again that he'd done before, and just sat in a castle with his pig army.
And he did it, and that's what he did again. It really goes to show you that in Ocarina of Time, if you fail, it's you're literally subjugating the people of Hyrule to tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years of torture and torment, basically. There are peaceful times. A Link to the Past has peaceful times. Oracle of Seasons has some in between there. And it's presumed that after Link's Awakening, it's a little while before the Legend of Zelda original happens. So, but
yes, yeah. It's I think it's supposed to be a long time.
Oh, and here's where Breath of the Wild fits at the end.
Or
all three, and not just one of them. Not just one of them.
There's another theory to where Breath of the Wild fits, because we don't have an answer yet.
Yeah.
But we've been told that we're going to get an answer in the sequel, and I can say this without spoiling anything for the game. There is a theory that I actually very much like, that it is not an End to All 3, but it is Zelda 1 remade.
Oh, like the very first Legend of Zelda game?
Yes, it's Legend of Zelda, The Resurrection of Ganon, done again. And that this sequel is going to be The Adventure of Link remade.
You think so? You think they'll do that?
And I can just say, without saying more spoilers, it does make sense.
It does.
You've seen what the world looks like.
It's
not happy. And the way Ganon is in that game. Have you seen Ganon in that game?
No.
Okay, so I won't say anything, but the way he is in that game could fit with the idea of a fucked up nuke Ganon blowing up the world and coming back kind of thing.
Ooh.
So Zelda 1 and 2 are so weird and obscure, and in this timeline even, it looks like they were thrown away. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we don't want to deal with explaining this, put it in the corner kind of thing. And I think this could be Nintendo's attempt to rectify that.
Could be.
Like, let's bring it back where it started from.
I mean, to be fair, back in the original Legend of Zelda and the Adventures of Link, they didn't know it. They weren't planning any of this.
Not at all. Look at Link. I'm gonna zoom in on this.
He has he has a Christian.
I was just gonna say, look at his fucking Knights Templar shield.
Yeah, he's got a Templar shield. That's not at all. It's fucking ridiculous.
Link, the Christian knight from Japan, is here to save you.
Exactly. Like, but no, so I could definitely see that for sure. I do like the idea too that, like, again, in that timeline, it's just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy because they just never got their footing. Like,
yeah,
because Link and Zelda lost in Ocarina of Time, they can never come back. I loved that, and I that's why I like these being at the end because it is like basically like, no, they absolutely failed. Whereas, like, you know, at the the adult era with like Spirit Tracks, obviously they're going way into the future. After Twilight Princess, they continue to advance into the future and stuff like that. But like in this one, it's just kind of like, no, it's the opposite. It's literally apocalypse. It's like this is basically post-apocalyptic Zelda. Like
even
this is
look
Fallout
at this.
Zelda.
Look at this art for Adventures of Link.
Yeah, it looks like.
Look at that tree in the background.
It's destroyed. Yeah, it looks like
it's a dead, destroyed tree. So another thing which I also just love is that Adventures of Link Zelda 2, as it's known, is literally just everything that's been happening before this. Zelda's like, fuck this, I'm just gonna kill the wizards. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna kill the last sorcerer. Link's just like, let's just kill the last sorcerers. Like, if we stop them, it can't happen again, right? And so they do. That's the whole thing. Exactly like it says, the resurrection of Ganon is prevented.
They finally learned.
Yeah, like, if there's no more dark wizards to resurrect Ganon,
we don't
have to deal with this anymore.
They finally learned their lesson of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
But that's what makes that era so amazing. So it's like, again, you have the hero is triumphant. You have two different timelines for that alone, and then you have the hero is defeated, which is just like half of the games.
Yeah. Also, just to put a point, there is a theory that Breath of the Wild also is like right here.
I've heard that theory as well.
Right below the Sky Era, like that. This unmarked spot is the Breath of the Wild.
It's like the establishment of Hyrule Kingdom. Yeah,
like it's way early. It makes it seem so late, but it could be super early.
Yeah.
And the theory that I saw of that, which is what I was going to bring, which is why I clarified the Ganon thing earlier, is Ganon is very weird in that game. He's nothing like we've seen Ganon before in any way, shape, or form. And people think he is what is impregnated into Ganondorf. Into them to make Ganondorf.
Oh.
And so Ganon was an entity beforehand, and he was the strongest of all evil entities. And that's his version of Breath of the Wild. So I'll just say that he is absolutely nothing, like any form, appearance-wise, theme-wise, anything like Ganon we have seen before. And I think it's because it's pre any sense of humanity has entered him as Ganondorf. That could be a possibility.
That could be it. Because I've also heard that it takes place at the very end in a nondescript timeline. It takes place after all three at the same time during each timeline. So like each timeline eventually makes its way to the same point. And then after that point, Breath of the Wild takes place. Like
the timelines conjoin, kind of. Yeah, that could be a thing too. 100%.
But Breath of the Wild isn't the conjoining. It's just,
Yeah, they all reach the same fate, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They all end up getting to the same place. Even the that left heroes defeated timeline where everybody dies, they still get there.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, the only timeline that I could see spared from that is the right one, because that is the only timeline that ends on a high note. Even Four Swords ends like kind of like ugh.
I mean, Twilight Princess still ends with like, okay, Ganondorf's dead, I guess, but what now?
So the end of Four Swords Adventures, just to say so people understand, because I know not a lot of people did play it. You kill Ganondorf and Vati's back. You don't kill him.
Yeah, it's his reincarnation of Ganondorf and the resurrection of Vati.
Yeah, so if Vati's back, that's kind of like it ends on a note like, uh-oh. And then they came up with this game, Four Swords.
Yeah.
But then we found out that it's in this book, we found out, it's not a sequel.
Yeah, Four Swords. Four Swords is after Minish Cap. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the resurrection of Vati. Yeah, so it makes it seem like, he was back, and now we're going to deal with him. But apparently not.
I do like the idea that they are like moving the villains around a bit more. You know what I mean? Like, hey, no, Vadi made his way thousands and thousands and thousands of years later. Like, he's still around.
Yeah.
He can still come back. Like, he's still. I mean, he was one of the most powerful sorcerers. I wouldn't be surprised if one day we saw like Vadi from Four Swords and Minish Cap, Zant from Twilight Princess, like, you know, all of his secondary goons. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them come back again.
And it's called Hyrule Warriors, which also is a canonical story.
Yes, it's true.
On this timeline, they have officially said that it does fit on the timeline, and a lot of people also believe that it is a fourth timeline here.
Did I send you the wacky timeline too?
You did, yes. Should we bring that up now? This is a good time. Now we've got to the end of the normal one.
Yeah, the normal one, and this is just the wacky timeline. This has all the games, even the CDI games. It tries to put them in there too. Don't take this one with a grain of salt. This one is not. This one is absolutely not like.
This is the fanfic version of it all,
and it's pretty.
Tingle's
funny.
Balloon Flight, yes,
exactly. It literally includes Tingle's Balloon Flight. So again, take this with a grain of salt. It presumes Hyrule Warriors takes place right before Four Swords. See, like right in the child era with Majora's Mask. Twilight. It even says Soul Calibur 2 takes place after Majora's Mask. Like
Soul Calibur 2.
Like Link
that's hilarious.
Link goes off on some random fucking adventure, you know. And he's like, well, I have nothing to do. I'm gonna go join a tournament. Even Smash Brothers is in here too. It's fucking funny.
Yeah. So also there's a thing in Hyrule Warriors that happens that people flipped out about when it happened.
Oh yeah.
Which is there's a map where you're in the Twilight Realm. That's when you meet Midna, and
that's cool.
So just for the record, that game starts as its own world. Like you're another Link.
Yeah.
Like you are a Link in its own kingdom. So like that's a thing that happens. And there's a map where Midna shows up, and it's because she mentioned she got pulled from her world into this world, right? So it's kind of like all these worlds are colliding, all these timelines and stuff, because the plot is some bullshit with evil wizards fucking with timelines.
No, that helps me out because with my Zelda story I'm writing, I also have a timeline colliding, so I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, that's just what happens. But a big thing that happens is in this Twilight Realm, you see the moon from Majora's Mask in the sky. And
oh, fuck.
It does not... There's no Majora's Mask reference in the rest of the game. That's it. So that basically confirms that the moon that the Skull Kid and Majora's Mask use is from the Twilight Realm. Yes, and that Termina may very well be in the Twilight Realm.
Oh my god. Well, I've heard that before, but that one I because like there's a lot of theory that it's a different country. There's a lot of theory that it's a different dimension.
I like to think it's a different country, and there's a big thing that happens because in Ocarina of Time, he gets on Epona and rides off in a forest, exactly. and then when I was a kid, it was like, oh, the new land of Termina, and so it's just like, oh, he just ran in a forest, like it's the medieval ages. People didn't have there was if a massive forest separated two kingdoms, they might never find each other.
Yeah, and it's literally the Lost Woods, like
it makes sense. Like exactly. It's a huge forest. And it's just like they could just be two completely different countries and two completely different cultures, which they are. Like you've talked about. Well, I think we should do a whole Majora's Mask episode.
I could break down the culture. Yeah. Yeah,
you talked about it on stream, and I was actually extremely interested in that.
They're actually kind of. I'll do a little one. So Termina's more of a merchant republic than a monarchy. Like they're very much.
Which which is a good point because there's no kingdom.
There's no kingdom. There is the kingdom of Akana, and there also is the Deku
when you
kingdom.
When you get to Clocktown, as I'm trying to say, for like Hylian human elves, there's no like the king of Clocktown. You know what I mean?
No, it's a mayor. You got a mayor.
But the Hyrule Warriors showing the moon there made people freak out because it made people think that the moon from Majora's Mask was summoned by Majora from the Twilight Realm.
Yeah. That's basically it. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's what I like. That's what I believe.
Well, there's a lot of theory that Majora's Mask is a relic of or part of the Twilight Realm in some way.
Yeah, another popular idea is that Termina just is in the Twilight Realm and Link just crossed over.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, that's the other one I've heard too. It could be that too. The only difference is though that there wouldn't be that many different humanoid forms. There'd be a lot of different creatures there. That's the only thing. But I don't think they thought about it at that point in the game.
No,
obviously,
and obviously now we don't know about it. But just the fact that happens in Hyrule Warriors is crazy. Skull Kid is in the game. But he's a DLC extra. So he doesn't actually have he doesn't fit in the story. He's just like a little bonus character, and he is my favorite, and he's great. But in that game, he's so fucking good. His weapons are the two fairies.
Oh,
so he just floats around. They just attack things for you, and you summon the moon and shit. It's cool.
Fun fact about Twilight Princess linking with that and Majora's Mask is that Majora's Mask and the Fused Shadow, what Midna wears, they have super similarities in aesthetic. Like the eyes are the same.
Yeah, basically. No, there's definitely has to be a connection. Also, just the way it's so dark, I think it also makes sense to connect that way. Another big Hyrule Warrior point is Linkel. But the story of Linkel is very anticlimactic, and she's also a DLC, so it's kind of like this weird little thing, but it's basically just literally that she heard a rumor that there was a hero of time who was a blonde person wearing green, and she noticed she's a blonde person wearing green.
So she's like, I'm the hero.
Yeah, that's literally it. Like, Link exists, and she just shows up.
That, though.
Yeah, she's like, I'm the hero, and she's good at fighting, and she's my second favorite character, and she uses 2 hand crossbows, and she kicks massive ass.
That's awesome.
But it's just like, she just like kind of follows Link around, but when she realizes, but she still thinks she's the hero of time.
And then Link's like, no, I am. That's kind of funny though. Hey, whatever, as long as she's helping and kicking ass, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, who cares? Hell yeah, she's another hero of time as far as I'm concerned. Who cares?
And also that game, I'm gonna go ahead and say best Ganondorf
in Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely. Fucking red-maned motherfucker. So I love the Dynasty Warriors series, and in Dynasty Warriors, there's a character named Lubu, and Lubu he was a real person. He's known as he was known as a demon back then because he was so good at killing people, like in real history, and in every Warriors title, they give like the Lubu treatment to somebody who's this like super overpowered character, and in Hyrule Warriors, it's Ganondorf.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you have 2 giant fucking swords, and you can like use your triangle combos to turn into Ganon, and you're just like massive, and you just like crush things and just kill thousands at a time. Like you feel like a god when you play him.
Yeah, I imagine that's how Ganondorf feels as Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm excited to get into Twilight Princess too. But I mean, to wrap up everything that we're saying, so like the timeline is obviously very confusing, but at the end of the day, they kind of fit the 3 pieces of the Triforce. In the era where the hero is defeated, it is the Triforce of power. And what happens when power takes over? Well, there's not a lot of anything. There's a lot of devastation, sadness, war, imprisonment, slavery. You know. That's what A Link to the Past, the original Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons and Ages, Zelda 2. That's what all those stories are about. The Child Era, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, the era of courage. It's the era of courage. These dark, horrifying things befall Link, things that he's never seen before, things that no one's ever seen in the Twilight universe before. Yet, at the end of the day, despite seeing a moon that can crash into the world and kill everybody, despite seeing a shroud of darkness consuming people's souls and turning them into nothing, he still stands up and he wins. Courage defeats fear every time. And that's what that proves. And then the adult era is the era of wisdom. The era of people who are trying to just protect each other and advance into better society despite the failures of the past. They're trying to learn from the past. That's exactly what they're doing in Wind Waker. They're trying to be a better society than whatever that was before, when they once had a land that wasn't completely covered in water. And then in Spirit Tracks, they advance even further. So don't think of these timelines as nonsensical garbage. They're thematic in their own ways, and it's very beautiful and it's very well told. And at the end of the day, the 3 timelines actually work in balance to one another, because at the end of the day, whether or not Breath of the Wild takes place at the beginning, or maybe it's the remakes of the original Legend of Zelda, or maybe it takes place at the end, it's just going to fit somewhere. And if it fits a theme, I'll know it when I play it. But
man, I just looked this up because I wanted to know more, and I just found out there is a crazy explanation for Four Swords Adventures.
Oh yeah?
So Four Swords was a timeline where there was 4 links at once.
Yes.
That's 4 swords.
Yes.
There was 4 heroes at a time because the world was in such danger, that
They needed 4.
They needed 4 fucking links to do it. So you do it at the end of the game. You seal the evil wizard Vati because he could never be killed, which is what people thought for a long time was where Ganon came from. But now we know they're 2 separate entities because they couldn't kill him. So they sealed him in a prison with 4 swords, and then back in time. And then what happens in this time is after Twilight Princess, basically the world's at peace for like eons and eons. And then it becomes dark permanently, and Zelda reads a story, I guess, is what I'm looking at right now. Zelda reads a story that in the age of Vati, eons ago, it was dark. It was always dark and night. So she realizes someone fucked with the tomb. And so someone moved one of the 4 swords, and then it brought him back.
Oh, that's kind of cool, though.
And he had been watching everything that has happened, and he resurrected Ganondorf. So that's the new, like... That's how they explained it, because it says on this thing too that it was assumed it was a sequel to 4 Swords until Hyrule Historia came out, and it kind of fit 4 Swords into the timeline
really well, actually, too. Like,
yeah,
it also makes sense in the child era too, because again, it's great darkness that he has to confront again.
Yeah, and it's just the shadow. The world is covered in shadows, which is what it says. It says Shadow Era right there.
Yeah.
So the world is covered in shadows, and it was, you're just fighting. Oh, I didn't know. That's interesting. A lot of the bosses are Dark Links. Shadow Links.
I knew. Yeah. Because there's a lot of good links, so there's a lot of bad links.
Yeah.
There's a lot. What I like about the Zelda stories is they do a lot of good job of balancing personal stories with the big grand stories. Like Majora's Mask is so personal, yet Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time are so big. Yet Wind Waker has a lot of personal things in it, and Link's Awakening is very personal, and Skyward Sword is really personal. It's really great that they show you how the smallest action and characteristic of a person can affect the world in another game so largely. Like, just Zelda wanting to be a sweet person and send Link back to his childhood in Ocarina of Time, then, caused all of this. Like, just 2 separate timelines, Like, so just all these small decisions that are made. It's the butterfly effect, and that's what's so cool about this story is that, like, literally at any point you could dive into any of these stories and bring out a brand new game by pulling out a single concept. It's wonderful. It's Soupy's time. Sorry. But anyway, that's all I have to say. And again, like I said before, by wrapping it up, I love this franchise so much because it is all about balance in oneself and balance in the world. And I personally have always sought that for myself. And I absolutely love, more than anything in the world, the themes in this game, because they are some of the darkest themes that I've seen alongside some of the most wholesome and bright and happy themes I've seen in a game. And I think that's what life is. I think life is horrifying and dark and scary, but at the same time, you have moments of pure bliss and joy. And to me, that is the Legend of Zelda franchise wrapped up in a nutshell. So,
yeah, very much. It's a very hopeful story, and then some crazy sad story.
Yeah.
But it always ends on a high note, even in the apocalypse.
It's true. Even the games when even when they're like, we won, like even at the end of Ocarina of Time, they won, but everyone's dead still. It's like, we won. It's like, great. But it's good. I did tune into the stream. Oh God, it's the good stuff, baby. It's that good stuff. But hey, we're gonna continue this right now because I'm about to boot up my my Twilight Princess, baby.
Yeah, I put the post show thing on, so if we can just hang out while you boot everything up.
All right, sounds good. So I'm gonna end my recording. Thank you all for joining us for Lore Lords again.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.